Welcome to The Business Strategist, the show for CEOs and founders ready to scale fast, lead smarter, and build a business that doesn't rely on them. I'm Adam Strong, award-winning strategist, former elite athlete, international speaker, and 3 times best-selling author. After 3 decades in business, I know exactly what it takes to grow, scale, and exit with impact. Each week, I dive into real conversations with industry experts, bold entrepreneurs, and clients navigating the uphill struggles of business, giving you the tools and the strategies to create more profit, more freedom, and more impact. Let's get into it. Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of a brand new tool that we've just created called the Exit Readiness Assessment. Now, it is for founders and CEOs that are looking to exit from their business operations. Now, it doesn't matter even if you're not looking to exit right now, I would highly recommend to go and take the assessment straight away. It helps you to identify areas in your business that you need to work on to help you towards that exit strategy. And at the end of it, you get a personalized report on some of the areas that you're doing particularly well in. What if everything you've been told about competitive advantage is completely wrong? Forget marketing funnels, forget growth hacks, forget the business book that you're reading right now that's sitting next to your bed. Here's what no one's saying about business owners. We're doing all the right things, hitting the numbers, growing the team, showing up every single day. But somewhere along the way, you're starting to running empty. You're not tired because the business is hard. You're tired because you've lost track of who you are inside. Now, that's not a productivity problem. It's not a time management problem. This is a full-blown identity crisis in a suit. And it's quietly burning good businesses down and good people along with it. And now today, that really changes everything because my guest today has spent close to 20 years in helping leaders and business owners find the one thing that protects them from things like burnout. It unlocks their team and builds something that actually lasts, which is their identity. My guest today is an executive coach. He is a keynote speaker and is a recording artist and has over 100 published songs, 20 years of experience in leading teams, working with high-performing entrepreneurs to top-level executives. What's really interesting, he's built a methodology or a framework called the Teams Method, which we'll talk about. There's a podcast called Level Up Leader. I want to give a big shout out to one of our mutual friends, David Meltzer, of course. But Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's a privilege having me. Thank you so much, Adam.
It's great to connect with you. And I know we've got mutual friends, David Meltzer. We just want to give him a big shout out to him because he introduced us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been working with David now for a while, and I getting ready to hop on a plane and go hang out with him and his team in Vegas. So I'm excited to connect with him, but honored to be with you as well.
I'm jealous, by the way. Just want to say that's off the bat, but that's good. I like this. I'm actually really looking forward to this conversation because, listen, you've got a really interesting background working in the music industry, and you've kind of moved into leadership as well. I think one of the things that kind of cropped to my mind, and for you guys that are listening in, by the way, I know that me and Michael are going to be talking about a really interesting topic, which is all around identity and identity crises. But what's really interesting about Michael is that he comes from the music industry, he works in cinematic film, but it was also moved that into the world of leadership. Now, really interesting, Michael, because for someone that's got 2 skill sets, tend to keep them very separate from each other. But in your case, you've intertwined them together, which is quite fascinating. And I love you because you've got a YouTube channel, right? And you've got a lot of followers over on YouTube, which are, very, very popular. And I just love the way that you articulate that. I guess my first question is why? Why intertwine them both?
I asked the same exact question. My creative director came to me at the very beginning of 2025, and and it was a blunt conversation, and we've been talking about identity and authentic identity for quite a while, and a lot of the teams that we coach, by the way, they are getting caught up in how do we adapt to a world that's being run by artificial intelligence, by
True.
AI, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing is that ever since post-COVID, we have seen such a drastic shift. I mean, there's 4.2 million people globally that call themselves coaches at some level. And only, I guess, apparently the statistic is that only 3% of the 4.2 million are actually legitimate forces to be reckoned with, certified, credentialed, educated, proof of work, client success, on and on, right? And so in the middle of 4.2 million noisemakers within the coaching industry, what makes me different? Well, being smart enough isn't good enough. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of smart people out there. And so my creative director came to me and he says, Michael, you might be the only executive coach out of the 4.2 million that actually is a legitimate recording artist and also a keynote speaker and a coach. What happens if we kind of combine everything just to kind of create your differentiator and to be able to get people's attention and to be able to tell the hard stories in a way that makes them palpable? And I thought, is this legal? Is this breaking some sort of like cool kids rule or something like that? And so,
Right. It's so funny.
and ironically, it's been incredibly successful. And but here's the thing: selfishly speaking, I love what I get to do.
Mm.
I am absolutely in love with what I get to do, and I'm so thankful that it's found an audience because, man, that would have broke my heart if I would have taken this chance of putting together original songs with leadership content, cinematic film, and then all of a sudden go, oh yeah, people hate it. It's a horrible thing. Like, back away. But no, it's like we're approaching about 1 million views of the 4 films that we have out right now, and the messages that we're getting from all over the world would absolutely just break you.
Well,
It's so powerful.
and just for context, just for some of our listeners that don't know you, what's the purpose of the films? Like, what is it designed to do?
Oh man. Well, it's a greater universe. First and foremost is
Yeah.
that it's at each film as a songwriter, first and foremost, it's like I'm used to kind of going in and working with an artist or writing a song that's about something. Maybe it's a
Mm.
story of an event that happens somewhere, or maybe it's about a relationship, or
Okay.
with some of my church background, writing songs that are to be sung in worship environments and things like that. I never actually approached songwriting with the intent of saying, hey, what would happen if we wrote songs about mindset and emotional and psychological issues that high level leaders and high level teams face every single day?
Mhm.
What would happen if we told those stories? And so like the first one that we came out with was last November. It was all about, the theme was clarity. So I wrote this song called Through the Haze, and it really addressed the issue of like, what happens when all of a sudden you start seeing things clearer than you've ever saw them before? Like what type of unlock happens for you? What type of unlock happens for your team? What happens to your life? And boy, I tell you what, it's really grabbed people. And what's been awesome is we incorporate those films in the keynote experience. It's a great pattern disrupt, and it's become a really, really popular part of what I do.
Love that. Some good stuff. And for you guys that are listening in, by the way, make sure you check out Michael's YouTube channel, which we'll put in the show description notes below, of course. So make sure you go and check those videos out and subscribe because he's always putting up new content on there, and honestly, it will blow you away. Literally, the way that the Michael's team has articulated Michael's not just thought process, but also just the whole kind of concept of how he sees leadership, and whether it be from an experience perspective or whatever it might be. I just love the way that it's been articulated in that particular way. What's the one thing that you kept seeing that nobody was talking about when it came to identity?
Man, this is we identity is this thing that it needs to be the thing that is defined before you define anything else.
Right.
It is the beginning. And unfortunately, there's leading and lagging indicators on everything. And typically what ends up happening is that, and I encourage anybody that's out there right now, by the way. So if you're like leading a team or if you're an executive in a
Mhm.
leadership spot, don't wait to change until you have to change. Try to change before you need to change. And because here's what ends up happening is that a lot of times teams come to me or leaders come to me when catastrophe has hit, when things are starting to fall apart, when they've gone over the top of the sigmoid curve and they're starting to experience failure as an organization, or emotional, psychological, or maybe even moral failure as a leader. And they start to experience even burnout, fatigue, depression, all these different things. And like, you're starting to question purpose in the middle of the mess. And it's just, when you get to that place, you have to do so much reverse engineering to try to figure out, like, where did it go wrong? What happened? But it always comes down to identity.
Mm.
It always does. And that's the thing is that when we, so you're, in answer to your question, no matter where you're at today, start with identity. Like, who am I? What do I do better than anyone else? What am I for? What's the biggest problem that I solve? Like, how do I want to make people feel? What do I want to be remembered for? Like, diving in, finding truth in the middle of the chaos, even when you're massively successful. Don't waste life today without asking real questions.
I think the real struggle, especially for a lot of our listeners, is that the world's a very busy place, right? You're running a business, you're making key decisions every day, you've probably got a family or whatever it is, right? There's so many moving cogs, so many moving parts. And I think that it is a matter of, number one, priority. Number two, self-awareness, because if you're not self-aware, then how do you know how to fix something if you're not aware of something?
Mm-hmm.
But number three, which was, people have to go all the way back to the beginning and to retrace their steps to try to find what the thing is, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you've highlighted is, no, hang on a minute, it's an identity thing here. But then for some people, it's very difficult to get a perspective of, is it identity or is it something else, and how they have to then convince themselves. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
If you're saying it's identity, and you've already mentioned some great questions of what we need to ask ourselves, if we're at that point of position, what are some of the red flags that often come up as, this person's got an identity crisis for this reason? Any thoughts?
Yeah. So when we think about, I think most leaders who are leading, I'm going to say, in my opinion,
Yes.
over 80% of leaders start off their day in the strategy bucket. They wake up, they start off their day. Yeah. You tracking with me, right?
I agree, man.
You wake up and you're diving in and you start thinking about all the stuff that you have to do today. It's like the alarm clock goes off in the morning, and before your feet even hit the side of the bed, you're immediately starting to think through all the different checklists, all the different strategies, all the things you have to do. And where burnout and disenfranchisement happens is when all that energy is not producing ROI. It's not moving the needle.
True.
And so it becomes incredibly frustrating, and it's angering at times. And then you start blaming people on your team. It's just like, hired the wrong person, blah, blah. But here's the thing, is that the reason why your strategy isn't working is because of a lack of clarity on your identity. And when you have clarity on identity, you find out the thing that you do better than anyone else, and you immediately create a differentiator between you and all your competition. And because that's the thing, is that when it comes to, one of my mentors once told me, he's like, if you're having a conversion issue, like if you're lacking sales within your organization, it's probably because of one of three things. It's because either your offer is irrelevant, or your copy is outdated and not useful or bad, or your product sucks. It's one of the three things. And I'm like, I don't disagree with that 100%. But it does lead back to like another thing of like, why did you offer that product in the first place?
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of like the deep insight, the deep underlying, under the hood stuff, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have story upon story about that. But like, I even have a client that I'm coaching out on the West Coast, and they launched a product thinking that they owned the IP, thinking that they owned the trademark, thinking that they had a one of, just a classified one of one product, only to find out that there's a bunch of products that do the exact same thing as the thing that he was pushing.
Yeah.
And his identity is off.
It's so true. How does that link back to the why and the vision. I guess they all kind of interlink, don't they? Because fundamentally, I mean, I'm a big believer, Michael, that you need to have a core foundation to start from
Yep,
before even contemplating on talking about marketing, product, service, whatever it might be. But you
yep.
have got to be grounded first. Would you agree on that?
I do. And the thing is that the why, your why is actually intermixed in with your authentic identity. Like
Yes,
it just has
agreed.
to be, but you shouldn't even flirt with vision until you have identity first.
Agreed.
And you will probably end up kind of talking through the identity matrix at some point in this conversation. So
We will, and looking forward to that. Now, tell me, because we talked a little bit about, but you say that identity as your last competitive advantage.
yeah, authentic identity is the last competitive advantage.
Yeah.
It's all we have left.
But how do you connect that with, say, burnout, for example? Because they feel two very different things, right? Are they similar in some way? Does one affect one or the other?
Well, one's lagging and one's leading.
Yeah.
So that's how they're related. But when you think about in a world that to where we're constantly thinking about hustle, we're constantly thinking about optimization, we're constantly thinking
True.
about how can we put speed into being first to market and in our communication systems and all this stuff. Well, guess what? Like it is now the reality of man versus machine. Whether you like it or not, this is the world that we live in. In a world where absolutely everything, including the sound of your voice, can almost be replicated or duplicated or created by something else. If you don't have your true authentic identity locked in, everything else can be replaced.
I guess my question would be is like, then how do you know if you're experiencing an identity problem or an energy problem? Because we're fundamentally boom, 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 boom all the time, like hustle culture type of thing, the majority of the time. Any thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot of different things to be able to kind of unravel that a little bit. But I mean, even
Yeah.
say, for example, like with you and doing this podcast, you could literally show up here every single day, but if
Mm,
you didn't have your niche dialed in, you would be not known.
that's true.
And I think a lot of times, like, especially in business and whatnot, like we don't actually stop to think of like, oh man, am I just trying to be somebody else, or am I trying to try to find success where somebody else has found success before? And we don't ask ourselves some of those harder questions, because I think then we start putting our energy in the wrong spaces. And even though we get up and we work hard, but guess what? That turns into an energy problem, that turns into an identity problem.
Mm.
Like you can be putting all the energy you want into somebody else's idea and you're still not going to get traction because it's not you.
I agree on that. Talk to me a little bit about the identity matrix. I know we briefly just mentioned it really, really briefly a few minutes ago, but I'd love to know more about what is the identity matrix? How is that applicable to the listeners? Why should people care about it? Are you ready to exit but have no idea what your actual number is? Most founders I know have a target in their head. Maybe it's 3, 5, 10 million pounds, but they never actually test it against the life that they actually want to live. So here's what happens. You know what your business is worth, but you don't know what you're worth once you're out. And that's the real gap. That's what's keeping you stuck in the business. Zentum works with founders at exactly this point. They help you see the real number, not the guesswork, the actual number you need based on how you want to live your life afterwards. Now, Dominic Baldwin, the founder of Zentum, is offering a limited amount of complimentary calls to sit down with you and listen to hear what your exit may look like. Now, if you're fed up with being stuck and you are looking to build a personalized wealth plan specifically for you, head over to zentum.co.uk to book your call today.
You should care about it because it affects everything. And especially if you're currently on a team. Now, back when I decided to take the leap and to go, you know what? I really want to dive into becoming one of the best executive coaches in the world. And I think one of my motivations was that I went back to school. I started to study for my master's and start working towards a doctoral degree. And my motivation is that I had experienced being on a bad team, a horrible team, an abusive environment for way too long. And I actually started to believe that maybe I was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And So I went back to school, not for education. I went back to school for therapy. I thought I was it. I was like, I got to raise the roof on my own personal education and figure this thing out. And I don't want to go into details about like how, about some of the dynamics that were at play here. But what I ended up finding out was that the one thing I was trying to figure out this thing, like, what is the one thing that everybody has in common if they've ever experienced being a part of a horrible team before? Do you know what that one thing that everybody has in common?
Tell me.
They never want to do it again.
That's true.
Right. And so when I started when I started teams.coach, my company, that was just my true north. And I was to say, I'm going to create an executive coaching and a team development system that eradicates bad teams. I am going to create the world's best performing teams. And I was like, so I saw this movie Moneyball, and I'm like, that character that Jonah Hill played in Moneyball, that's going to be me. That's going to be I'm going to be the guy, but for corporate teams. And so I kind of became that. I kind of became this nerdy guy. And so to answer your question, how this affects everybody is because everybody's experienced, or you've led horrible teams before. You didn't mean it. You didn't mean to turn them into horrible teams, but they turned into horrible teams. And maybe you've been a part of a horrible team before, or a bad work environment, or a team that didn't win. And at the end of the day, here's how this thing always plays out is that in the middle of it, structure is always your gateway to effective strategy. Always. Like, I have worked with teams that have come up with some of the most ridiculous and what I would dare to say, some of the most stupid ideas that I've ever heard in my life. But guess what? Those ideas worked because they were attached to amazing people. Structure is always your gateway to effective strategy. But before you get there, you have to go all the way back to the top of the identity, making sure that you're building the right things. Well, what are we? We're starting off with identity. So those 5 kind of those questions of identity, like, who am I? What do we do better than anyone else? What's the biggest problem that we solve? How do we make people feel? What do we want to be known for? Then we can actually start thinking through vision. Okay, what is the impact we want to be known for in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, so for you in this podcast, you told me that you were nominated for a potential award coming up. Is that something that we can talk about?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so what's the name of the award?
So the award is Podcast of the Year. There you
Absolutely. Go. So that's a part of the vision thing, is that guess what? Adam Strong is going to be the uncontested winner of the Podcast of the Year award for your region for the next 3 or 4 years running. That's part of the vision, right? Mm-hmm. Is that we want that uncontested recognition of saying, like, when it comes to this content, when it comes to this vertical, when it comes to the contribution to this, nobody else is going to be known more than Adam Strong in this one specific space. So that's part of that vision, right? And then we can go into structure. Okay, great. In order to make that happen, who do we need to have on the boat? What are the relationships and what are the rooms that we need to be in? Because guess what? Structure always is your gateway to effective strategy. Then we can build the strategy based off of who's in the room. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100% makes sense.
And then there's 2 other things beyond that. Then we can go into how systems is your gateway to scalability. Yeah. But I don't, to my best teams, I've been doing this for a long time, and my best teams, they figured that one out on their own. Like, we map it out, but I never have to talk about it because they figure it out by, oh my gosh, it's like somewhere in the middle of this universe, by us having like a phenomenal group of people with great levels of clarity at an organizational level, and we have people in the right seats that are passionate about our mission. Come on. Like, we can do absolutely everything. They execute on the strategies. Awesome. Let's go. And guess what? They figure out the system to scale on their own. Like there are a couple people that we map it out for, but great people scale. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting. I love the way that you've kind of structured that. I want to quickly backtrack because you on this thing on identity, and you gave a personal example. When does it become unhealthy? When it becomes an obsession? Because you made a very valid point there where you had, you've been in the game for 20 years and you wanted to become like the number one executive coach. Like but when does it become unhealthy? Because then it becomes an obsession, or is it unhealthy? Is the debate.
Well, goals and dreams.
Yeah.
And vision, that's not a part of your identity.
No.
Like, And that's the thing is like identity is rooted in truth. It's rooted in foundations. It's like, okay, who am I now?
It's the DNA.
It's the DNA.
Yeah.
And then here's the thing is that vision is always the result of authentic identity. Like vision is when we say, and first and foremost, is that I've never met a successful leader that wasn't somewhat obsessed with the vision of what could be.
Mhm.
And but the reality is that more times than not, the reason why they were somewhat obsessed or the reason why they were passionate about it was because they were so in tune with who they were that it felt so obtainable that they weren't willing to look elsewhere. Like when I think about, like I don't know about you, but I'm a massive Steve Jobs fan. Like,
I could take him in small dosages. No, actually large dosages. I think he's a great guy. Yeah, 100%.
well, I don't know if he was a great person or not. I've heard stories on both sides of the fence,
Yeah.
but what I loved about it was that you go back and you think about like his ability for him to be able to say something back in the 1980s. He had this intangible or a tangible vision for him
Yeah.
that literally scared the crap out of everybody else. Is that he was on a personal mission to making sure that a personal computer was accessible to every single home.
Yep.
And at the time, like I didn't grow up with a computer in my house. I remember thinking that computers were just for really rich people when I was a kid, And now it's like we walk around with computers literally in our pockets because of Steve Jobs.
Yeah, it's true.
And so when you think about that, there's a certain level of being obsessed with the vision. Now, one of my mentors used to always tell me that if your vision doesn't scare the crap out of you, it doesn't count. Okay. Now my vision intimidates me because I know I can do it.
Yeah.
And so, but if I didn't know who I was, I wouldn't have that confidence.
I guess a thought that comes through my mind is, what's the benchmark for knowing where you are in terms of your identity, like in terms of identifying the gaps? Because I think if you don't know where the gaps are, then it's very hard to plug the holes, right? So what's a maybe, I don't know, a practical exercise that you would maybe teach some of the leaders that you coach in trying to coach them and helping them to identify their gaps?
There's a lot of different feedback mechanisms is so important. And I think the best leaders are the ones who are transparent and vulnerable with multiple different points of feedback mechanisms in their life. And so I highly encourage that. It's like one of my mentors used to tell me that you're the sum average of the 5 loudest voices in your life.
So
And
true.
I still am a huge advocate of that. And we recommend, even like with the leaders that we coach, to more cyclically or quarterly for them to be able to go through what we consider like a noise audit in their life. So identifying the 5 loudest voices that are in your life, the people that you've invited as advisors, the people that you've invited in as mentors per se into your spaces, and actually audit it. Is that relationship actually beneficial to you? Are you getting honest feedback? Now we've built in our executive coaching programs, we have weekly two-way cadences for authentic and trustable feedback both ways.
Mhm.
So I think it's so important that you don't keep that on a long leash, but I think authentic and transparent communication and feedback mechanisms on a daily to weekly is so important, especially if you're running at a fast pace.
What does that look like? Give me an example of maybe a client that you worked with where that exercise was extremely successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we've seen successes even just from personal mindset to personal relationships to sales mechanisms, all those different things. But like say for example, we're working with a vice president of sales out of New York City with a pretty high-end product that has some global implications. And he's struggling with mindset. He's struggling with how do I show up on a day-to-day basis? And so on a day-to-day basis through our app, he's able to document and to be able to record in of saying, hey, here's my greatest struggle and here's my greatest victory today. Here's how I handled some of those mindset issues. Here's the thing that I'm still creating some noise in my head. And so he's able to send those questions over in real time. And then tomorrow we're able to give him some nudges immediately to saying, hey, think about these things. This is who you are. And we also have automated coaching built around assessments to where we know specifically how people are built. And so we're able to give daily feedback before they even give it to us.
For maybe one of our listeners that don't have access to that app for whatever
Yeah.
reason, what is an alternative? Would you say that journaling is a good way to try to fundamentally articulate thoughts and reflection and things like that? What's your
Yeah. Journaling is fantastic. Or just finding 2 or 3 people that you can connect with monthly and to be able to have some people that you can bounce ideas off that you can be transparent with and allow some organic feedback mechanisms to be able to develop around who you are.
full transparency here, by the way, ladies and gents? I have 2 or 3 people in I'm going to call them my circle. We use each other as a bit of a sounding board, and we check in probably at least twice a week. And it's really interesting because all of those 3 people, they all think very differently from me, which is really complimentary, of
Yeah.
course. But the great thing about it is, even though we are friends in a sense of that, they're able to kind of, see my, should we say, not my weaknesses, but I would say, like, try to disrupt my thought processes in a way to challenge why I do what I do. Is that something that you do personally as well?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have people that are lightly engaged or they're just a part of our like friends of
Yeah. Yeah.
our inner circle. But I even texted this group of guys today that to where I specifically have them on my what I call my hope list. People that I know like that I've either met at conferences or that they've heard me speak. They've shared something with me to say that that my message resounded with them. And even though they're not a client, and I don't have them like in a lead funnel or anything, I don't
Right.
want them to become a client, but they heard me speak, and so I feel like I have a personal responsibility to making sure that they know that I care about them.
Mm.
And so I'll send out text messages once a day to people just to remind them like, "Hey man, I just want to let you know how powerful you are. I want to let you know how much purpose you have in your life. Like send me over something that you're feeling like you're struggling with today. I want to be able to help you navigate through it. Or what's the thing that's blocking you the most right now? What's the thing that's slowing you down?" And you have to have those relationships. I have those relationships in my life, and I'm really picky and choosy to making sure that the people that are in my life that they have full access so they can ask the hard questions to make sure that I'm staying on point.
Because I know you've got a great framework called the Teams method. Is that correct?
Yes. And I, we, because my company's name is teams.coach.
Right.
And so that it kind of like the whole universe built out really well back when we were dreaming about a framework that we could take people through that made sense. Like so when you're
Yes.
running a business, when you're leading a team. And so we wanted to have something that was sticky, that was easy to work with. And so yeah,
Absolutely.
so it works. It's great. So I'll walk you through it really quick. Won't take super long. Is that okay?
Yep. Let's do it.
So the first thing is targets. What's the number one thing that you're putting your energy towards this week as far as what's your bullseye? Is it clear? Because guess what? If you don't know what your bullseye is, you're not going to hit it.
Mm.
So number one is that. Number two is engagements. What is your 3 points of engagement, and how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? So for example, how are you engaging with yourself today? Are you being honest with yourself, with your emotional, psychological, spiritual health today? If you're having a bad day, write it down. Send me over a 2. You know what I mean? And then how are you engaging with your team? And then how are you engaging with your audience? And measuring that every single day and keeping that out in the open. Number 3 is action. Like what are the 3 action steps that you're doing today to actually move towards your bullseye? And again, I think we have to be reminded of this, is that in business and in life, we don't measure success on how busy we are. We measure success based on how many promises we're able to keep.
Articulate that. What do you mean by that?
Well, because if you think about it, like, I don't know about you, but like I work in a world in which I'm coaching a lot of organizations in which the KPI is, it could be top line revenue. It
Yeah,
could be
true.
retention
Yeah.
but guess what? Everything somehow, and I can't, once I saw this and once we've kind of figured it out, like it always comes back down to people's ability to deliver the things that they said they were going to deliver.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
And so So with the action steps, this comes down to your ability for you to clearly articulate and document, here are my promises to myself and to my people.
Mm.
And here are the 3 things that I'm going to do this week to be able to move the needle towards the bullseye. So it's pretty simple, but that's so important. And there's a reason why it's right in the middle there. But then momentum is the 4th one.
Mm-hmm.
Momentum is measured differently though here with us. Momentum isn't about what can we do more of so we can go faster. It's, do you have the ability to recognize the things that are slowing you down? And then do you have the ability to change or modify or remove the things that are slowing you down?
Okay. Give me an example.
Uh, well, when you think about, let's say, for example, dealing with an online retailer who has a women's clothing line,
Mm-hmm.
and she's not, and she's starting to get concerned that maybe social media isn't giving her the return on the online ads like it used to,
Yep.
because the reality is that social media is behaving incredibly different in 2026 than it did in 2019. Would you agree with
I
me on that?
agree. Absolutely.
So she dives into her methodology, and she's going through the team's method. She gets to that momentum question. And I say, what is the one thing that you're currently doing and you're putting your energy towards that's not giving you ROI? It's actually slowing you down to move fast. So she recognizes that the thing that's actually slowing her down is her mindset, the way that she looks at herself, and that she needs to change her messaging because her current messaging is actually getting in her way,
That's interesting.
right? Or here's the other flip. These are real-time things. She was afraid to make a change with her current SEO agency because on paper, to all the agency owners out there, I'm so sorry that I'm saying this, but sometimes from an executive coach's perspective, sometimes I see data that's being shown that's client facing that doesn't actually reflect reality.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes because sometimes we're a little bit more concerned about income than it is our client's outcome. And that's something to where it's like, okay, great. Well, that's a huge momentum shifter. So if we can identify that relationship is actually slowing you down a little bit and we have to make a change there, how much faster can we go if we have the right relationship in the right spaces?
Yeah. That makes complete sense.
Right. So then the last one is synergy.
Yeah.
Synergy is about the wins that we celebrate and repeating it. So it's like, okay, how
Yeah.
did you win this week? What went well? What was the big green light?
Yep.
Okay, great. Rinse and repeat. Let's do it all over again. Let's celebrate. Let's go.
I call them wins of the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's such an underestimated team bonding exercise, if you want to call it that, because we leaders tend to want to grind it out, right? But we never kind of step back and think, wow, we had a great week, guys. Let's go celebrate type of thing, right? We just don't do that enough, I don't feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to get to the place. And so for the owners and founders out there,
Yeah.
here's the thing. You probably suck at celebrating wins because most people do, you know, and that's the thing is that if you want synergy to take place with the rest of your team, you're going to have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be okay with you giving yourself a little bit of a shout out and celebrating and visually showing what celebrating wins looks like for you yourself personally, but also for your whole team,
Yeah.
even when it doesn't feel big enough.
I agree. I want to quickly backtrack because I know at the very beginning we talked a little bit about the connection of, I mean, you're creating music video, music production, and then you're intertwining that with leadership moments
Yeah.
or experiences, which I find fascinating. What does that do in people? Like, say, for example, I am a audience member listening to your keynote speech or whatever it is, and you go put that video on. What does it unlock in me? What are you looking for? I'd love to know more about that because then I'm kind of, again, I'm going to encourage the listeners to go over to YouTube and go and experience themselves. But from your perspective, what are you hoping it's going to do?
From a communicator's perspective, I'm looking for nodding heads.
Yep.
I'm looking for teary eyes.
Yep.
I'm looking for people experiencing something that they weren't expecting in that moment. I'm looking for something that was not tangible to become tangible, like in that moment, because here's the thing that I know, not from theory, I know this from living this out, is that feelings are gateways to awareness. And so we talk a lot in executive coaching that is that organizations and people, they'll never change until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change.
Repeat that again, because I think that's a great golden nugget that you just said that.
People and organizations, they will never change until the pain of staying the same is actually greater than the pain of change.
Yeah.
And so, well, how do we lean into to change? Well, step number one is awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, guess what? We figured out that there's actually one step that's before awareness, and it's feelings. And if we can help unlock people to be able to experience something, for them to be able to feel something in the now that makes them cognitively or maybe even subconsciously go, there's something deeper happening here,
Mm.
it unlocks awareness. And that's really where the transformational work starts.
I think we were talking about this off air about the importance of that awareness and having your antennas on,
Hmm.
because effectively that's where it starts, right? And I think, the world is such a busy place right now. We often get distracted with shiny penny syndrome, with the latest technology, with AI or whatever the gold rush that's out there. And I think fundamentally, I think it's a struggle. I'll be honest with you, it's a struggle. And I think you would probably agree with that
I do. Yeah.
yourself. And I think it's but from your perspective, how could one then flip that? How can we block out the noise? What do you, as someone who practices what they preach, what do you do as a practical exercise to distract you from all of that nonsense and keep your brand awareness high and up there?
I'm a student,
Yeah.
and I'm still figuring a lot of these things out, but I know how to lead myself.
Yes.
And I know that garbage in, garbage out, for me. And so like, for example, like my office in Omaha, Nebraska is a 30-minute drive or commute from my home.
Hmm.
And so I have some basic rules. So when I get in my car, I don't take business calls on my way home. Um, Sometimes I'm listening to some music. Sometimes I'm listening to a podcast or an audiobook or something like that. But I literally have this rule to where it's like, that's my decompression time. That's my time for me to be able to off ramp.
Yep.
And then when I walk in the door of my house, I don't, I'm in full time dad mode.
Yep.
I'm in full time spouse mode. And I think that knowing yourself well enough for you to be able to create rules of optimization for yourself, you have to be able to run yourself well if you're going to expect to run your team well,
Yeah.
if you're going to
True.
expect to lead well. And it always starts here. And that's for me, I don't know about you, but I've experienced absolute enthusiastic and big wins in my life. Like I've experienced some amazing things, but I've also experienced some excruciating failures.
Yep.
And but guess what? For me, those things are fuel for growth. And I'm so thankful now that I've gotten to go through those seasons. But man, because I was able to come up with my operating system for my life and to be able to lead people well.
Beautiful. Love that. Now I know that we're coming towards the end of our conversation, and I know that we could speak for hours, but I know you've got to fly. Final thoughts about our conversation, because we've covered a lot of groundwork, haven't we?
Yeah, yeah, it's been really, really good when it comes to authentic identity. I'm a
Mm.
student of it. The
Yep.
reason why I allowed my creative director to come to me and say, "Hey, let's go ahead and combine like what we're doing over here in the leadership world with what you're doing in the music industry, and let's combine and do a mashup, per se, and create these films." But here's the thing is that it's starting meaningful conversations. And the thing that I do and what I'm thankful that I get to do is I get to hang out with some of the best leaders on the planet and their teams, and I help create teams that are going to break world records. That's
Yep.
the thing that I'm known for. And so when people experience the thought leadership and some of the musical things that we do,
Hmm.
it just creates this thing to where it's easier to talk about the hard things because of the art that we're creating.
Right.
And that's the thing is that if you're able to take the edge off of the hard things and make them a little bit easier to talk about, do it. No matter where you're at, like, try to figure out a way to make the hard things a little bit less hard.
Beautiful. And that's a great summary. Well, first of all, ladies and gents, I have thoroughly enjoyed today's conversation with Michael. And listen, I would highly endorse go check out Michael's links below. Especially go subscribe to his YouTube channel. Now, I forgot to ask you, what are you working on right now? Are you working on anything special?
Yeah, we have a couple we're getting ready for conference season over here in the United States, and so we
Mm,
have quite a few conferences coming up, and so
cool.
so if you're gonna be at any of the social media marketing conferences, I'm at quite a few of them in the United States here over the next
Sweet.
couple months, but we're actually getting ready. So last week, we just dropped our film called Still Here, and that's one I played for you right before we got on
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
podcast. So check out Still Here on YouTube. But coming up, I'm dropping live and a live performance at Social Media Marketing World in front of 3,000 people.
Wow.
The next song, which is called Authentically Me. And it's really all about making sure that you're able to kind of what we talked about today. Like,
Yep.
how do you make sure your authentic identity is coming out in a world of artificial identity?
Beautiful. Anyway, Michael, first of all, just want to say thank you so much. Been a great conversation. We had a lot of fun, right?
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
For blast.
Absolutely, 100%. For you guys that are listening, I hope that you've enjoyed me and Michael's conversations. Make sure you go follow Michael, of course, over on social media, YouTube, LinkedIn, all that jazz. Some really interesting things that he's doing, especially if you're fundamentally focused on improving your identity, but more importantly, the impact that it can make on your team. Right, that's the crucial part. That's the missing piece of the puzzle. Anyway, from me and Michael, just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And hopefully we'll see you again soon on The Business Strategist. Take care and speak to you soon. Cheers now. Bye-bye.